the time out there.
We were supposed to go to Italy and then COVID.
Hey,
But you're still going to Italy.
I still am.
You're still
You're gonna
going.
give me all the hot spots.
Yes.
I know, everybody's hitting Patty up because they, like we wanna take my mom, my sisters and I. Yes,
So,
we have a lot to do.
okay, May of 2025,
So you made it? Oh,
Yeah.
that's good.
right?
Yes.
You would know,
Wait,
but
wait,
you
wait.
probably have meetings like this. so-
Audio's on.
Okay, thank you. No, not really anymore.
Not anymore?
Yeah, they,
I have never in my life watched my meeting.
they actually still
You
have
should be
one.
impressed, you're gorgeous.
The link.
Is the audio on?
Audio's on, video's on.
I think it'll be so pretty.
Hold on, everyone, I'm just trying to find the Zoom info. You know what, Gina, would you be able to send, back the link to the meeting to log on?
It's also on our webpage.
Sorry, you need me to send a link?
Yeah, I guess,
That
maybe
is,
to Beth's phone.
yeah, she's having a hard time finding the link.
It's on, yeah, it's in the, agenda, but I don't know if she just needs it to her phone.
To her phone, her email, perhaps, both. Thank you, Gina. Okay, why don't we call this meeting to order at 7:07 PM?
I
Pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Everybody and welcome. We have a special guest this evening. This is Glenn Richard, if I did not.
That's great.
Okay, excellent. And Glenn, if you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, you're from the Massachusetts Association of School
I'm the
Committees.
executive director of the Massachusetts Association of School Committees. From 1973 to 1986, I was a member of the Cambridge School Committee. And I've been at MASC now for 24 years. We assist districts in their policy work and professional development and looking for superintendents.
Thank you, that's why you're here tonight, and I greatly appreciate that. So as we're on a hunt for a new superintendent, we need some guidances.
You have a fairly unique superintendency. The point for full-time superintendency. So there are certain candidates who really would like to do something like that. And we have a database of people that we reach out to. That database is available to all our member school committees. It's not a secret. But people who contact us regularly through the year and say, what's opening? There are people who retire who say, like to do something else that's not full-time, those options are there. And there are others who might be doing this and doing something else at the same time, make it work. The search process is a relatively simple one. You figure out what it is you're looking for and what it is you need. Some districts need someone who can put a curriculum together. Some need someone to put the financial house back in order. Others need to build buildings. Others need to build a relationship with the community. Whatever your needs might be, you put that into a job description and a list of criteria for decision making. This document, which I provided for you, which is not copyrighted and not private, so you can share this with your community if you like, is sort of a guide for what you think about and what the steps are. In your case, you're early in the year, this is the best time to be starting. So the first step is to figure out what the community wants. You might have a meeting with the community members to get some feedback. You might want to set up an online survey and get feedback from the community. All of those things cost no money. They're technology, it's available It's easy to do, community focus groups, easy to meet with the community, and might not be easy to hear what they have to say, but you can do that. You also want to talk to the faculty and see what the faculty are looking for. While you're doing that, you send the notice of vacancy throughout the universe of potential candidates. Now, anybody who wants to be a superintendent in Massachusetts, whether it's full-time or part-time, looks at the website of the State School Boards Association, which is us, and the website of the Superintendent's Association. And we all post all the vacancies for our member districts, so we represent everybody. It'll be there. So somebody in Des Moines who wants to come back east, or someone who is retired in another state and wants to do something interesting, can find out about your vacancy. We usually encourage districts to put together a small brochure talking about what they do. And if you're looking for samples, go to our website. You can see what's there. Again, very little of this stuff is mailed out. It's almost all distributed electronically, which means distribution is free. And the graphic designing is, a professional that does that, for example. And we do it for any member district that's looking for your member district, so get that. We would then work with a search committee. Tell you why you need a search committee. In Massachusetts, a majority of the school committee is not permitted to go into executive session to screen and interview candidates for the superintendency in the first round. So 2 of you could be on that screening committee. And I would encourage 2 of you to do that, whoever they may be. And then you can engage members of the faculty, members of the community, whoever might wish to serve on the search committee, ideally 9 to 11 people.
For a community this small.
No, just in general.
Okay, so
Those
nine
are-
to 11.
You'll need to schedule a review of the applications that come in. You'll need to schedule an orientation, so the search committee will know what to do. And then you'll need to schedule opportunities to interview the candidates. Most of the interviews take place in person.
Mhm.
Sometimes if they're coming from a distance, they're done remotely. And then the search committee would make recommendations to the school committee for public interviews of the finalist candidates. The search committee would make a recommendation to the school committee. Usually the school committee accepts that recommendation, sometimes they modify it. And then when it goes to the school committee, everything is public. No part of the final process is in executive session. That part, public's gotta know that. Now, that means that there are people out there who wanna help you with your search, whether you want it or not. Our friends in the media, of course, this is a big story for the town, so there may be people, and does the Lynn item cover what happens in Nahant?
Yeah.
They might be interested in finding out as much as they can. But the candidates usually want privacy for the first round of the application process. And if you are working as a superintendent in Mayberry and they love you and they think everything's wonderful, but you've decided you want to come to Nahant, suddenly, and you don't get the job, suddenly it's hard to go back to your original place. So until the finalists are named, the semi-finalist candidates could be entitled to privacy and confidentiality under certain conditions that are not that hard to identify. So that's how that process works. We recommend that when you have a search committee, you include someone from the administration, parents at different levels, maybe some teachers at different grade levels, sometimes members of the community at large, occasionally someone from the select board is interested in doing that. It's a good outreach for the municipal side, but you know what's best in terms of what people are looking for. In the meantime, we gather the data from an online survey. And we assist the search committee in developing questions for the candidates. Really thoughtful questions that try to draw out who they are. And if it's good, if the good questions, and you follow up with the questions and just make sure you get your answers, you can pretty much get a good sense of who the candidates are. They will show you who they are. If you're diligent enough to do a good interview, and people are. So that's not going to be a problem.
So in regards to the online survey, in your experience, how long is it? How many questions are asked? What type of questions are asked?
Generally, you ask the same questions that you do when you meet people face to face. So let's say there was a community survey where the residents of Nahant were invited to join in and give you feedback. We would ask, what are we doing right? What's important about Nahant that needs to be preserved? I suspect you will have people saying, we want a superintendent who will protect, preserve our school, which means a lot to us, and our kids, but what's local to Nahant, you may know already, we don't, so we get that from the community. What do we need to do more of? What do we need to do less of? What's on your wish list? In other words, what do you think are going to be your goals for the next 3 to 5 years? Anything else you'd like to tell us? Open responses are very helpful. And you can do a combination of multiple choice and open responses, or just general open responses. The survey programs aggregate this stuff, and you can have it to look at. Ultimately, the survey becomes public as well. Occasionally, you redact stuff that violates somebody's privacy or something, but generally not. And from that, as I say, you plan your questions. If the community tells you, we want our kids to be better physically fit, then you might start talking about what have you done to promote good health of students in your community. If the community is committed to equity, you might ask very specifically, tell us what you've done to pursue equity. And how would you advise us in looking at equity? This is a one school town. So it's not like one side of town has a better school than the other. But equity can include everything from, are the classrooms just as effective? Do you have something, just heard this week for the first time, you have intellectual equity in your community. The teachers have the freedom to speak out. If someone has an unpopular idea, do they feel safe talking about it? Do people feel safe disagreeing, dissenting? So there are all kinds of different, really interesting ways to talk to candidates. We have a number of candidate databases, samples of interviews. I mean, databases of interviews that we've had. A lot of good samples, a lot of good suggestions. Usually the search committee likes to write their own interview, but we have guides to help them, and we work with them in the process of editing the interview.
Editing the interview in terms of the questions asked, who should ask
In terms
them.
of the questions asked, you don't have to ask every candidate the very same questions in the very same way. But you do have to be fair.
Of course.
And I will say that group editing has been declared by the World Court as a crime against humanity. So we try to work with the search committees about getting your work done efficiently, but let's not spend 4 hours debating questions. Let's expedite this and get it done. They're working with the chair, working with us, working with the other members. you can get through all the roadblocks. I would suggest if you have a search committee, you want to make sure that the search committee members are collegial, collaborative, and committed to the best interest of kids. Because they're going to be working together for a while and making some difficult decisions. The search committee will make recommendations to the school committee. You will invite the candidates to come to Nahant. Sometimes the district invites them to spend a day here at the school with us, or spend half a day with us, and then we'll interview you in the evening. Or you could have them come on successive days and then interview them all at one time. You hope that at some point you can get 3 people as finalists who want to come here that you'd want to see. But I would say, and we tell this to the search committee, don't move anybody forward to the public round that you're not prepared to have as your superintendent. I say that because it's no great shame to be a finalist to be the superintendent of Nahant and not get the job. But it's no great honor either. So we try to keep it as constructive as possible and respect the privacy rights of the candidates until the public phase. And then the public phase can be a very constructive process. And even the unsuccessful candidates can learn something and benefit from the process as well. Then you will select a candidate subject to the negotiation of a mutually agreeable contract of employment and transition to the new superintendent.
So ideally, I did watch the webinar.
Okay.
That you had a few weeks ago. That offer should be made, so we would need someone in this role by July 1st of 2024.
That's, if that's what you want, yes.
So we'd have to work backwards, 90 days, is it, in terms of that offer?
If the
date?
superintendent is retired, there's no waiting period. If somebody is still working, they may need to give their district 60 to 90 days of leave time from school.
So that would.
Because if you hired a sitting superintendent who wanted to work 0.4 full-time, and that person's sitting as a superintendent now, maybe full-time, that district's gonna have to start looking for somebody in April, which means they will possibly have to find an interim superintendent to cover. And there are plenty of people who are interested in being interim superintendents who could do that as well. So, and we have the names of all the people that are interested, and those lists are available to all of our members. So whether you hired a search consultant or whether you did it yourself, all of the stuff is available to you as a member of the association.
Search consultant.
Yeah.
I made that very, very clear when we spoke.
Okay. We'll say that one of the things we do is we make an effort to be present at every phase of the process, not because somebody needs to be watching you, but because sometimes these things can go sideways. Sometimes there are questions. Somebody might need to escort a candidate in and escort a candidate out. Or someone might need to get on the phone and help you schedule and do whatever it is. So that comes with the obligation.
So in your experience from start time, in terms of, kicking off the survey to getting a contract,
Mhm.
how long are we talking?
If you wanted to expedite it, you could expedite it before the end of the year.
Have all that. in place?
But that requires the cooperation of the search committee and being able to get together and meet. So if you had a search committee of 21 people, that's 21 schedules to reconcile. And that often doesn't work. So you could have somebody identified and ready to go by the end of the year.
And what does the job pool look like?
Pool?
For super.
Well, The interim superintendent pool or the part-time superintendent pool is a very specialized group of people. There's a number. There is a number, say there are a number, there is a number of people who are interested in doing this. And they make inquiries and you'll know what they all are. We will set up a confidential cloud file so that as applications come in, you will see them. In addition, you may find people contacting you and you can refer them to us and we give them the evaluation process. We have a, as you see, the brochure would be available electronically. We can put that together for you very quickly. You need to get some information and make some decisions about what you're looking for. You know, I would expect that there would be at least a half a dozen serious candidates who we would want to consider seriously. I would hope there would be. Now, we also have our how do you call them, pathological candidates or congenital candidates. They live to apply for everything. I can tell you there are 3 or 4 people who will apply for this position that you want no part of, but they're busy applying to Salt Lake City and Omaha, Nebraska, and everything else that comes up. It's sort of why we discourage you from using School Spring, because you might get the superintendent of an apartment building who wants to be a superintendent. They haven't put it together, but we have a very broad list. And our website gets about 100,000 hits a year. The Superintendent's Association, they get 1 million hits a year. Because they put everything up. They put assistant superintendencies, principals, and everything. So a lot of people look for these positions. And as I say, it's very interesting because at one time, we would send out 2,000 pieces of mail. And we'd be on the phone calling people, or they'd be on the phone calling us, and be a lot of time and a lot of energy doing that. Whereas now, a lot of it's done electronically. A lot of the communication is done electronically. You know, we can talk to 3 times as many people as we used to be able to talk to them, and half the time, and at no cost.
So talk to me a little bit about the logistics between electronic survey and how that would work. Would people be directed to a link?
They would be directed to a link. They could go onto the survey. They could complete the questions, save their responses, and the survey program would gather all the data, aggregate it automatically. So we could show you the summary of what everyone said. We could also show you every response that came in.
And how do you avoid duplication in terms of response?
Actually, the survey program won't let the same computer respond more than once. But very, very rarely do people try to stuff this ballot box. Occasionally, we see a disproportionate number of responses that are like, well, we understand that Terry Smith has given 20 years of dedicated service to the public schools. That should be rewarded with the superintendents. And you might see that a half a dozen times. You know where that comes from, and you can give it the weight that you like. But most people, and I would say 98% of the people who respond to the survey want to give you feedback, and they want to consider. And we also tell you that 10 to 20 times more people will take the survey than will come out at night for a meeting.
One of the questions that I had about the survey, where it would be public information at some point, just like a public meeting, I would assume we would require a name and address as we would for somebody to present at a meeting.
I'm sorry, say that again.
If we're having a survey, that's an online survey,
Yep.
just to make sure that we're having community representation and that it would be made public.
Yeah.
That just like at a public meeting, we would ask for name and address.
We usually ask people to identify their role in the community. We don't ask them to give their names. You might, or you could say, please give your name optional, or you could say, please state your name. You could do that. We've done big surveys without asking people to identify themselves and still had good data. So I'm not, I'd be less concerned about that. We also, you'd have to have an opportunity to talk to your public in person. So you'd want to have at least one session where the community comes together. Sometimes we do that as a day. You know, we talk to the administrators, your special ed person, some of the administrative support staff in the building, and the teachers at some point during the day. And interestingly enough, what we get from the live interview, oh, and then at night, talk to the community. What we get in the live interviews mirrors what we get online.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting.
And so you would come in, for, as us hiring you to do this service, or you're saying that this is what the committee would?
Well, we would do that for you.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
Now, when we have a community meeting, you might want to be the
Right.
moderator, and my job would be to diligently take notes down, get a summary of what you have.
Okay,
That's never an issue. The public in Nahant is not going to be daunted by the presence of people that they elected to office. So
right, yeah,
they'd be happy to see you.
yeah,
I can tell you, though, that teachers don't like to give survey information except in the presence of other teachers.
mhm.
So we respect that. Go with that. And then we write up a summary report. Or use the survey summary data that we would have. And you get a sense of what people are looking for so you can ask the right questions.
So how long would the survey link be out there for? And
Oh.
typically,
Well, it's out as long as you want it up. But we usually keep it up from the time the advertisements go out, or the electronic distribution of promotional materials. We usually keep the survey open until the search committee is done with its questionnaire. So people can, yes. Now, we can at any moment check in on the survey and get the data to date. So if it's open for 5 weeks, you might be curious and say, what are you hearing? Say, well, I'll show you what we have so far. Generally, if you have a survey that 300 or 400 people take, I don't know what. Usually after 50 responses, the consensus doesn't change.
Okay.
So you can, you know, the trending doesn't change, but we could download the survey data at any point in time instantly and get it. So that's the process. And very well.
Patty,
Sometimes,
do you mind if I ask a couple questions? I just had a couple.
absolutely.
Sorry, Glenn, Beth Anderson from the school committee, very sorry to not be there in person to say hello. I actually can't stand being online, so painful. 2 questions about the process. One is, and I may have missed this, there was a lot of really good information and helpful. The survey is to be able to get representative input from our community constituents. And then is the next step after you all, you know, look at the like give us themes, and we look at the survey, is for us to come up with an ideal an ideal candidate profile, so that
Well,
then we can release that.
you should be able to identify what it is that you're looking for early on. But the survey may give you some additional information that will be instructive. The survey will also help the search committee to develop its questions and the school committee to develop its questions. But the process of gathering candidates and gathering information from the survey, that takes place simultaneously.
Yeah, I guess I would push back on that a little bit. I think that, you know, the search for superintendent is one of the most important things, as you know, that a school system does. This is my first time, I've hired school leaders, but this is the first time hiring a district school superintendent. And I think, we're in a certain interesting kind of period of history in Nahant. The last year was, well, first of all, we were recovering from a pandemic like everybody, but there's a certain Nahant's a different community in a lot of ways, right? And it's small, it's on an island. And we're very in love with our own, like, kind of the specialness of that. And we also just had to make some really difficult decisions as a community and as a school committee last year around our grade levels and our sixth grade in particular. And so I'm sure there's feelings about how we lead into the future that will affect how we look at an ideal candidate for this time. The other piece that I would add is that Mr. Pierre Antozzi is going to be a tough act to follow in a lot of specific ways. And I think it's also a good time to get community input on what that means for Nahant. And so I guess I personally would want to hear some of those voices as we develop what kind of candidates we're looking for.
But my suggestion for you would be to get the survey together quickly,
Mm-hmm.
so that by the time you're ready to start putting together your promotional material, you can look at the data that come in, and you'll be able to be informed by that process. You know, it takes, once you figured out what questions you want to ask in a survey, and that's not difficult, it takes maybe half an hour to put the survey together and 5 minutes to put it online. And then you can distribute the link to the community and to the school and start getting feedback, you know, as early as, you know, Monday next week. If you wanted to work that fast, you're not under the kind of urgency that the full-time superintendencies might be looking at. In other words, the people who want to work 0.4 are less numerous than the people who want to work on a permanent basis. So some districts want to get started really quickly, and they want to be done by Thanksgiving to get the best people out there. In your case, the best people out there might be a different kind of person. But you certainly you don't want to drag, but you do have time to get a survey up and give yourself some time to get some feedback. So if that's what you wanted to do, we could have a conversation tomorrow about putting a survey online and having one up. And then you can check back with me in 4 or 5 days and say, what are we getting for responses? Now, how you communicate the survey to the community. Certainly the schools can send it out to the kids and the parents. I don't know how you would inform the average taxpayer of Nahant about the availability of the survey, but you could certainly ask the different agencies in town to distribute that information. Where do people, they go to the Lynn item for their news?
That is, there's our town's website,
Yeah.
there's
Okay.
social media.
Okay.
things,
All that, if you all have social media and use that, it's totally appropriate. It's also totally appropriate to ask the people of the community to think about some potential candidates that they might know. Your faculty, your community members, they know people who know people just like we do, just to spread the word as fast as possible.
To be on.
Yeah, no, not to be on the committee, but to apply for the job. You could put a survey out getting information and feedback from the community, as I said, very quickly. And then you might find, we do have in this handout samples of the selection criteria that some districts have used, or the professional responsibilities that some people feel are important. And they could help you find out what's most important to them. So we'd be available to talk to you about that and move fast.
Excellent. Does anyone else have any further questions?
I do, but more than willing to cede the floor to somebody else first. Okay, I wanted to, Glenn, you know, I don't have the experience you do here, but a wide net feels like something we would want to do just so. I mean, I heard you say about the hits on the Mass Association of School Superintendent site and the school committee site. But not everybody that might be an interesting candidate for this job would necessarily go to those, probably most, but maybe not all. And I guess I was wondering about like what I heard you on, like people misunderstanding with the superintendent, like that all superintendents are not equal. But I think y'all could, in your help, could get rid of those folks. So I just wondered to be able to catch folks in other areas that may have the qualifications that we're looking for this job and might fit the ideal candidate profile or whatever we're calling that from other sectors. That might be, I wouldn't want to not have them know about it. So I wondered like what you thought of that.
We distribute the notice of vacancies to the state school boards associations across the country. We have a list of organizations and associations that represent interested candidates. We send information to the graduate schools that train superintendents.
Great.
And we also have a special list of individuals whose organizations that represent a really diverse pool of potential superintendents.
Okay.
And there are some programs at the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education that specifically reach out to minority superintendent candidates,
Great.
but they're made aware of it. I must tell you, most superintendents of color are looking for full-time positions.
Yep.
But that doesn't mean that everybody doesn't know people who can share this information, and they do.
That's reassuring. That was one of the things I was wondering, and one can only hope as we see more and more folks slowly, folks of color becoming superintendents, that they too will be able to retire and do some of these things. But I was also thinking of making sure we reached both current and retired folks in the public charter sector, in the voc tech sector, in religious or private schools that may have the public school qualifications, you know, that we're looking for, and bring some other things, you know, because a lot of school administrators have worked in, well, I shouldn't call it. There are school administrators that have worked in a variety of sectors, and maybe there's somebody out there that would be an attractive candidate for this job.
The charter school community is pretty aggressive about checking the websites and looking for vacancies. The other private school communities also do that, and we do get a smattering of candidates from the private schools.
Great.
And it's there for them to see. They just don't, some seem to be interested, but there are also retirees from all of those sectors who might be interested in working .4.
Okay, that's helpful.
They also understand that, well, it's .4, that doesn't mean it's only .4. Because everybody takes it home with them.
We hope.
You know,
So now I have a question in regards to putting together a search. Okay. So how does one go about that?
You might ask your community to see who would like to volunteer to be on the search committee. And you could ask them to let you know that they're interested in a position that you have saved for parents, faculty, community residents. You may have some very helpful retirees who were in education members of the community. I'd say try to keep the search committee as close to 10 or 11 people as possible. But sometimes you got a lot of good people that come in and you don't want to shut them out, so you extend the process. The smaller the committee, the more likely it is you stay on time. The larger the committee, the more likely it will be that there'll be some scheduling problems, but we can work around all of them. You have the time to make that work.
Hopefully we'll have some volunteers.
It's a very interesting experience. I encourage teachers and administrators to do it because it gives them insight into what the process is like for their futures as well. But you want people who will be collaborative, cooperative, and consensus building. And not necessarily people who refuse to surrender their priorities, but you'll be working with a group of people and you want people committed to success and collaboration. You might have some special constituencies in the community that you might want to consider. Many districts might save a position for someone from the English language learner community or the special education community. A lot of our school committee members come to this because they engaged with the school district through special education. So there's usually a big constituency around special education concerns, and those individuals have a great stake in who becomes superintendent.
Is it appropriate to reach out to people individually and ask?
If you're aware of people that you think would be great to have on a search committee, reach out. I'm assuming, I don't know who appoints the committees in the district. Now, my advice, and this is not because of anybody that's in this room right now, my advice is the chair of the school committee should chair the search committee and pick the search committee. That's easy. Sometimes the chair will say, I would, but I've got to get the school committee on board, so we'll have a school committee meeting and appoint the search committee at a school committee meeting, and that works too. Sometimes there are people who want to make sure that I have a say in who's on a committee, but not a majority of the school committee, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to do confidential screening.
I know you make it sound so easy, but there's so many steps in the process.
Well, it's a lot of steps, but it's more organization than it is.
Yeah.
You really, it's almost foolproof until you start looking at the candidates, and then of course, you don't know who the candidates are going to be. You don't necessarily know them, and you want to be really careful. And we need to be careful working with you, screening the candidates to make sure that nothing will embarrass the school district.
And that's actually a really good point in terms of the screening process. I would think that there would be quite a lengthy background check on the finalists.
Well, there'd be some diligent reference checking. At some point, obviously, you'd want to query your candidates if they're not already queried. Some people actually have talked about financial records as well, depending upon where it is. But generally, the candidates from the area are known. What you don't always know is why they want to leave their job and what the real story is. The challenge there is if someone their contract is not being renewed, they might say, I decided to retire here in Nebraska and come back east. But the real story is I wasn't a good superintendent and they're firing me. And I want to get as far away from Nebraska as I can be. Sometimes that is an issue. Sometimes the candidates aren't who they say they are. It's rare, but.
I know that all too well.
And some of them don't have the jobs that they claim to have. So there's some diligence involved in looking at them. much less for someone from Massachusetts or New England. All the state school boards association directors speak to each other. If I've got a candidate from Nebraska, I'll call my Nebraska counterpart and say, tell me about, I always use the name Terry Smith. Tell me about Terry Smith. And usually they'll know. There are some people who have some baggage in their Google that is not their fault and shouldn't be there. There are people, if you've been a principal and you've ever said no, if you've ever counseled anybody out of the profession that didn't want to be counseled out of the profession, they could be out there Googling you so that they find out if Terry Smith is a candidate in Nahant, they will call you from wherever else in the unisphere they are to tell you that Satan is sending this candidate to you. So you want to be, we watch out for that stuff. There are candidates who are stalked by disgruntled former teachers, former union leaders, former parents who did the right thing and did the courageous thing, but not the popular thing, and had to leave. We can put that in perspective in some cases for you.
That's your dong.
But that's not what that is. That's,
Time's up.
Someone was just declared an angel.
that tells me that it's time for Final Jeopardy, and my daughter wants to ask me, see if I know the answer.
So leaving here tonight, the next, our first course of action would be to develop the survey.
Well, so, yes, and to put together, to reach out for community.
Yes,
In
we
regards to
are-
putting together a search.
If you want to give us a survey that you like,
Yeah,
we'll take it and put it up.
okay,
If you want to talk to us about developing something for you to look at to start, we have some samples and surveys that
That would be really.
Yeah.
fun.
So whenever you need that stuff, you send me an email instruction.
Yep.
Because the email serves as my to-do list.
okay.
Okay.
And then you say, here's what I need you to do for Nahant today.
Mhm.
Do this, this, and this. And I understand it's because you do it that way because I asked you to,
Mhm.
not because you're bossing me around.
Mm.
But don't worry about that.
I can be bossy, but in a good way. But no.
Because we can work pretty quickly on the stuff
Okay,
and getting you the draft. You can finalize whatever you like, give it back to us.
yeah, okay.
No, that would be very helpful, starting.
But if you do need us, calling is better than email.
Okay, that's
Well,
unusual.
how much email do you get? You guys must get,
I love calling, I'm with you,
I agree, but it's so rare
I
today.
know.
It's so
yeah,
rare.
I get 250 emails a day. You get more than that when you were superintendent in Somerville, you must have got that before lunch.
Unbelievable.
Glad your number's saved in my phone, so I will be calling
Okay,
you.
right. Thank you.
So it's good to
Thank
know
you.
that you appreciate the call. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
see everybody.
I really look forward. to it.
Same here.
Great to meet you.
You're more than welcome to stay. I'm not.
Why didn't we all start laughing?
Rare is the opportunity to be 30 minutes from home. I'll be home at 8:30, I'll be there by 9, this is fine.
There you go.
As opposed to Pittsfield, which is like 2.5 hours away.
Yeah.
Wonderful city, by the way.
Oh, I'm glad you're doing that.
Nice to see everybody. Thank
Nice to
you,
meet you.
Superintendent.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
so much
Thank
very
you. It's the getting up, that's the challenge.
much.
And Madam Chair, with your permission, the members of the school committee who aren't here, I'll scan this document so they have it
Oh, absolutely.
rather than hard copy.
Thank you.
They'll have it very quickly.
Thank you so
I can
much.
show Glenn out if you'd like to continue the meeting.
I'm good, I.
You're all set.
I'm in, we're gonna find.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
so
Glenn.
much.
Great to meet you.
Okay, so moving on to reading and approval of the minutes from our meeting on the 12th of September. Has everyone had an opportunity to read the minutes?
There's
Yeah.
just one, sorry, there's just one edit. I realized that the last meeting minutes reflected that we approved the minutes from the July meeting, but it should say August 29th. So I made that edit and I'll resubmit the minutes as amended.
Thank you, Gina. Do I have a motion to approve the amended minutes?
I'll make a
I'll make,
motion to approve the amended minutes, as discussed from, September 12th, 2023.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Do we know who might be out in the audience today? Hello, everybody, and welcome.
I'd be happy to let you know who that is, Madam Chair. We have Anthony Camilleri, Britt Rusine, Nancy Caggiano, Maddie Federo, and your colleagues.
Hi, everybody. Hello, everyone, and welcome. So I'm gonna open it up to community input and correspondence. If anyone would like to speak. I think I see a hand.
Yeah, Anthony Camilleri.
Hi there, not a Nahant resident. I'm a news reporter with the Daily Item. I was actually watching this because I was planning on covering the MCAS score discussion, but I must have seriously missed the real news here. Superintendent Pierantozzi, when did you announce your retirement? You know what's the general timeline for the superintendent search?
Yes, it's not a discussion.
How would you like me to handle this, Madam Chair? Would you like Anthony to call me at a later time?
Anthony, could you please do that? You know, that's a great suggestion. If you would just contact Tony directly.
Absolutely, will do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. If there is no further community input and correspondence, has anyone received any correspondence?
I have not.
I have not.
I have not.
No.
So then we can move on to the examination and authorization for the payment of bills.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The item labeled item number 5 in your packet is a detail of the bills which require 3 signatures, Madam Chair. And since 2 of your colleagues are not here, I respectfully suggest the chair ask permission of one of your colleagues to place the 3rd signature on the bill roll.
Gina, do you
Yeah,
have?
yeah, we can do that, or I can do it tomorrow morning, whatever is better. Or you can sign my name.
Would you mind, Gina, if I?
Yes. Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the total this evening is $68,045.51, and I respectfully request that when I'm done, a member of the school committee make that motion to approve that amount for payment this month. Excuse me, this meeting. I apologize. So the first number are Amazon for a variety of school supplies. MD Communication are items that we added to our phone process when we got all new phones. The principal asked for I think 4 more phones in specific areas, so we had to purchase those on top of our original contract. And then the technology, person who works for us, Charles, asked for some assistance in setting those up, so we had some, that's what those two are. Learning Without Tears is a program that we use. Obviously, A1 Exterminators is for pests that we don't have.
Yellow. Yellow.
Ka-
Sorry.
Karen Financial Services is our monthly rental for our large copy machine. Full Ed Content Solutions is an important one. That's for our this year's purchase of library books, all new library books, which Heidi puts together, and then we buy them through this service. Wouldn't it be nice if we all had a $17.72 electric bill? That's for the one light pole in the parking lot that has its own meter.
Okay.
Verizon Wireless is for the principal's cell phone. Quill is for toner for our copiers. Obviously, Stop and Shop is for food for the lunch. The SEAM Collaborative is a transportation bill. I don't know if members of the school committee remember, but we used to go directly to NRT for our transportation. But about a year ago, I changed that, and we now are a member of a collaborative. The SEAM Collaborative, which is a collaborative in Stoneham, puts together a bid with NRT for many school districts. And we get a better deal, and frankly, we get better service and treatment because we are a member of a huge collaborative. And that contract is up, and on my desk right now, I have the current contract for review by the SEAM Collaborative Finance Director, who will be negotiating for all of us. So that's why that says SEAM Collaborative. It's really special education transportation. Tony Parentazzi is due $250 because he paid his own way into the superintendent's conference, and you're going to reimburse me. Instant alarm is for, actually, that's not for alarms. That was for, a lot of that is for our annual elevator inspection. Easter Seals is for special education services, as is the North Shore Educational Consortium. Beth Schundler is going to a conference this year. It's a national conference, which is actually in Boston. Healy Bus Company is our monthly bill for regular education, general education, transportation for our 6th through 12th graders through Swampscott. The JRI, or the Justice Resource Institute, is really a residential, very specialized special education placement that is for one student. And Brindle Christensen is our consultant psychologist. That's for psychological services.
Thank you. May I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the bills as listed in the amount of $68,045.51.
Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion made by Ms. Dam.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hey, moving on to the superintendent's report.
Aye.
We could start with the principal's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I'm excited to announce that the after-school enrichment program, which the superintendent started last year, is about to relaunch, thanks to the hard work of Riley Edmonds. She's put together a great set of activities for students to do after work, after school. They include a game board club, fitness fun, art from the heart, a movement activity, as well as robotics this year. We're adding Lego robotics. It'll be a small group of 12 students working in pairs using the Spike platform, and we've got some great support for that. And looking forward to using that during both after-school enrichment as well as during the STEM class. Our band program is off to a fantastic start with 16 to 18 members. Actually, I believe now we are at the 18 members. we were able to fund a scholarship for a student who needed an instrument. And Mr. Bullock is as enthusiastic as ever with his club, his group. And they got their instruments today, and they're practicing on the stage. And just as a note, we don't have a 6th grade this year. We have a 4th and a 5th grade, and that's who he's pulling from. So he has almost the whole 4th grade, and perhaps it will be the whole 4th grade signed up, as well as some members of the 5th grade class. So I'm really hopeful that will sound great throughout the school year.
It's great.
I'm excited about that. And congratulations to him and the students who've taken the step to sign up. And you know, it's not just about music, it's about math, it's about camaraderie and sportsmanship even, as you come together for those events.
Mr. Andrews, a question and a comment. The comment is, the band is literally off to a good start upstairs at the house here. I don't know if you can hear, but I sure can. The question is, if there were a student who was unable to pay, how would we find out about that? Like if it's down to like 2 students in the 4th grade, would you investigate? And then if they weren't able to pay, is there a way the school could make that work? Yeah.
Sure thing, Madam Chair, through you. We do have a student activity fund, and we are covering 1 instrument already in this current run of the band. Typically what will happen is a student will sign up, and then we'll notice they haven't rented an instrument yet. Or else we'll inquire with the family separately if we notice a student hasn't registered. But if you hear of somebody who's in that situation, we certainly don't want the cost to be an impediment to joining. And I think it's a great opportunity, and the funds are there through the Student Activity Fund, which, by the way, is funded largely through our clothing and rags donation bin, in other ways as well. But that's available, and I appreciate you asking. And of course, lessons are free. They happen during the school day, and band practices after school. So the school picks up the cost of the rental.
Madam Chair, if I may, I think that, thank you for that question, and for your answer, but I think globally, no student will ever be eliminated from any activity here at the Johnson School due to finances. We have a variety of ways that we can find funds. We have donations that are given to us, some of them larger than others. And we will always make sure a student can participate in an activity that he or she wishes to.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dean.
In the area of technology, I'm happy to update you on Parent Square. Onboarding has started. We've connected with School Brains, and so they have started the flow of technology and information between our student database and Parent Square, which we'll be using to send out more frequent texting, phone calls, emails, newsletters through that system.
And that's slated to go live November.
I'm expecting it December.
Okay.
I'm expecting it December. I'm expecting training to happen in November. They say about 3 to 5 weeks for the onboarding to start. To be clear, I want to make sure the teachers are comfortable with it, and I am as well. And so we're hoping for early December. In the area of School Brains, we had credentials emailed to parents on Monday, which was yesterday. So parents received their usernames and passwords. So we're rebooting that portal. And we've already had some feedback on it. People wanting to change their names through School Brains or how they were represented. So parents can log in, they can see last year's report card, they can see their students' attendance. They can also request changes to their own biographical profile, which is what I was speaking about a second ago.
Mm-hmm.
In the area of curriculum and instruction, I want to let you know that we are pushing hard on rebuilding our marine science collaborations and connections. I was able to get in touch with Northeastern University. We're planning on 3 experiences per year, per class with them. We're going to be having a origami, math, and marine animals program in October, a sea shanties program in February. And I've also been invited to attend the October meeting of the Boston Malacological Society, which is a group that meets at Harvard University and discusses all animals with shells. And it may result in us getting a collection of labeled shells. I used to work at the Harvard Museum, and they are looking to do an outreach program. The Malacological Society claims to be one of the oldest natural history clubs in America, and they're looking to do outreach programs. And so I'm going to be working with them on developing marine science outreach programs, and I'm hoping that they'll present to our school.
Love it.
Yeah, interesting. I hadn't known about what malacology was until I was invited, so I'm
I'm glad you
excited.
said that because I
Yeah.
had no idea what it was. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. So clams and snails. We're printing copies of open social studies for teachers, and we're discussing that with teachers as a curriculum for social studies. We had some excellent committee meetings today. We're dividing our meeting time on our Tuesday meetings between information and committees. And the committee time is when teachers will be able to have opportunity to discuss and give input. And so we talked about not just social studies, but also writing programs and what our everyday math program looks like in the kindergarten classroom. And finally, I'd like to thank Diana Brandy and Alyssa Klein for their garden lessons. They've been collaborating during the STEM time. Ms. Brandy will be back tomorrow, and she's been seeing half the classes on one Wednesday and then half the classes on another Wednesday, getting them outside, learning about what's happening in their garden spaces. And then down below, I have a list of topics that you'll be hearing about for our professional development. These come from, again, our staff survey, including Colin's writing program, behavior management, trauma-sensitive schools, and Parent Square, which we're expecting to be, as I mentioned, launching in December.
Mhm.
And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Exciting stuff.
What's happening?
And moving on to the facilities updates.
Thank you, Madam Chair. One of the things that I'm working on is the health, safety, and security of the facility. As you know, we were wonderfully given an earmark out of the fiscal year 2024 state budget of not less than $50,000 because of our state senator and our state rep. And then we want to, I've already thanked them, but we want to make sure that we thank them every chance we get, because it's just amazing. So today during the curriculum time, I met with the safety committee, the internal safety committee. Next Thursday, October 5th, I will meet with a larger committee, and I believe we have already had one volunteer to be there. What we'll do is I've been collecting people's suggestions and recommendations. We'll prioritize them, and then I will go about the process of figuring out who can do what and how much it'll all cost. Today, we had the first event of that type of activity. I had a manufacturer's rep of security film here at the building, walking through with Sergeant Morneau, who is an expert in school and facility and general safety for the Nahant Police Department. And we walked around the building, and the two of them decided to where we should put the security film. Let me digress for a moment. Security film is an 8mm clear film that gets glued onto a piece of tempered glass. Then it gets sealed around the edges of the glass where the glass meets the frame. And if someone wanted to break in, or if somebody shoots through the glass, hits it with a steel object or a baseball bat, or kicks it in, this film holds. So if you think about how your windshield works, when your windshield breaks, it doesn't fall apart. It stays in place. You might have cracks all over it. Eventually, if you keep hitting your windshield enough, it'll give. That's how this works. So the manufacturer, 3M, and we're dealing with the largest provider of safety film in the United States. They guarantee a 2 to 3 minute delay. So if someone attacked the school or wanted to get in, or there was an intruder and they tried to go through one of our glass doors, for example, they actually took a gun and shot a hole in it. Without this film, the hole would cause the piece of glass to fall apart and they would come in. With this film, the bullet goes through, nothing else happens. The glass shatters, but it stays in place, and they have to kick it, and it takes a while. You can go online and look at security film, and there are many YouTubes where they show a split screen. One is somebody getting in through a glass door or panel, and the other one is trying to get in with this film on it. So we measured all the film that it was recommended that we put on. And I'm waiting for the estimate for that amount. Excuse me. It will not be $50,000, or in my opinion, anywhere close to that. So we can do lots of other things. So that's really what I'm working on right now.
Mr. Parentazzi, I just want to say I appreciate your diligence into safety all of the time, and not just in response to something, and that it speaks volumes in my world. So I really appreciate that.
You're very welcome. Well, you all see my bullseye. You know what that little dot in the middle is. It's all about health and safety. And that's, I mean, when a child is sent to a school, I mean, the horror of what happens in schools in our world today, I can't even use words to express. But obviously, parents send children to school and think they're going to be safe. And it's our obligation to make sure that we do everything we can to make that the reality. We can't guarantee it.
Right, of course.
There's no guarantees in life, but we can work diligently towards that. And we do. I'll give you an example. Someone put a block of wood in one of the doors last week. And because the individual, who I don't want to know who it is, was outside, they wanted to be able to get inside without going through a cumbersome process. There was a memo from me to every staff member within 10 minutes of me finding that out, saying, it is not to be done, do not do it again. Because they're the kinds of things that lead to things we don't want to think about. When it may be inconvenient to have to go around the school and buzz to get it back in, but that's the way it's done in today's world.
Get your steps in.
Yeah, no, you can't. One of my values, if you remember, is every shortcut we take, we pay for.
Yep.
Every single one. In my life, that's what's happened, and I'm sure in everyone's. There are no shortcuts. So that's really, everything else is working well. We had to heat our brand new rooftop HVAC system in the cafeteria is set automatically, evidently, because it's so new. It senses the temperature outside and automatically goes on. We actually had heat in the cafeteria today. Nowhere else in the building, because we have to have the rest of the building, we have to have a technician come in and start the boilers up. But there was heat in the cafeteria, and this room has heat because we get it from our relatively new split. Other than that, everything seems good. The only thing I know that we're waiting for is the dead tree to be cut down, and we're waiting for things to slow down at DPW. I went out and I tried to, I pushed against the tree and it's very solid. It's not gonna fall. Staff update, we are fully staffed, nobody left, nobody arrived. So
Good news. Let's keep it that. way.
That's right. And then the other thing I want to talk to the members of the school committee about, and the members of the community, is not for the first time, the Council on Aging has looked into the possibility of utilizing some space at the Johnson School for the Council on Aging. This happened this time because the Council on Aging wanted once a new kitchen at Town Hall. They got an estimate from an estimator that was in excess of $300,000. The town administrator then said, we're gonna spend $300,000 on a kitchen. Let's look at the Johnson School to give the Council on Aging more space, better space, and then meet the needs of both the aging population of Nahant and be able to have activities that are cross-generational. As all members of the community or school committee probably know, that's a very common practice in today's world, where a school building and particularly an elementary school and a Council on Aging share space, share a building, build a new building with both in them, so that the aging population, our aging adults, can actually work with our students and be role models for them. So it's extremely preliminary. If the fast track is probably work being done in the summer of 2025.
Oh, wow.
That's the fast track.
Okay.
And we would get that by the Council on Aging deciding they want to be at Johnson School, the school committee approving that they could come here, some sort of estimate on what's going to be done, then that would be brought to the town meeting in 2024. By the time architectural drawings and all those things, we would miss the summer of 24.
Mhm.
So we would be in the summer of 25. And that's really fast track. My gut would be it's a year out from that. It's really 26. And that's if it's gonna happen at all. I mean, no promises have been made, because no one who's been talking so far has the authority to make a promise. It's really between the two elected boards. It's between the school committee and the board of selectmen, because it won't be inexpensive. Their needs are space, kitchen facilities, and restrooms, and unique entries.
Right,
Handicap access.
and when you had, let us know about this too, I thought also about safety and access to the building and, you know, having that, you know, be part of what we have to discuss.
Absolutely. Yeah, wherever the Council on Aging would be, if it were in the Johnson School, there would be an isolated, unique entry port, and then a segregated doorway that would only be opened in the case of an emergency from the school out. And that any member of the Council on Aging or any of their clients who would go into the Johnson School would have to be allowed in very specifically.
And anybody who had interactions with the students in the school building would require the standard Cory checks and.
Absolutely. Absolutely, and more than likely, we would probably not allow those adults to be alone with students, even if they were Cory.
Mhm.
You know, we would have our own staff supervision or multiple people involved. Yeah, we want to make very health and safety. We want to make real sure that the individuals who will be interfacing with our students are supervised, are competent in a manner to interface with our students. And can do nothing but good with them.
Right, yeah, I think the collaboration between generations would be fantastic.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, we have a little bit of it now, but they have to, you know, there's a van involved and
Right.
transportation and, you know, this would, if it took place, this would really increase the potential immensely.
Yeah, and as I stated to you, Tony, I also love, you know, if the children could use the kitchen, that would be great.
Yes. Yeah, we would own, well, let me back up a step. It is the school committee's decision how the ownership and management of the facility would be determined. And I completely agree that because somebody uses something doesn't mean it's theirs.
Right,
And then, you know, we would love, I mean, this building used to have a kitchen. And years ago, it was taken out.
Oh,
It used to, yeah, you can actually see the piping in the kitchen if you look carefully. It's all been painted to blend in with the walls. But it used to have much more equipment. We used to have, you know, garbage disposal, commercial dishwasher, ovens and stoves. And we don't have any of that anymore. And they're talking about obviously putting it back in. We would retain the use of our cafeteria for our students, and the Council on Aging would eat in their own space, wherever that may be.
thank you.
So I have thought about it a little bit, obviously.
right.
So moving on to old business policies.
Okay. You find in your packet labeled 7A, a synopsis that I sent to the chair on Thursday, 21st of September. So as I told you last meeting, I was surprised by the volume of MASC recommended policy changes that I received about 10 days ago. Or no, it's a little more than that, maybe. And it took me a while to get through it all. So I didn't bring my big show and tell box in today because it's I didn't think I needed it. So this is the synopsis. So far, we have revised 2 policies. By the way, those 2 policies have already been amended in the policy manual online.
Great.
And the reason is because they were ones we needed right away. One was for a report I needed for DESE, and the other one was to allow us to be competitive with substitute teachers. Okay. We have 4 policies with the first reading done, and the second reading is tonight. We have 6 policies that the first reading is tonight. All those in your packet. The original review I did, and what I told you last meeting, was we had about 52 policies that had to be reviewed. Well, in addition, I identified 22, which brings the total up to 74. Then I reviewed the policies that were recommended in this fall, in September of 23 by MASC. They are 90. So that brings the total up to 164. Then that, because we're changing policies, part of their recommended revision is to eliminate 24 current policies. So between the revised policies, the new policies, and the policies we have to get removed from the manual, we have to change 188 policies.
Oh, that sounds fantastic.
Wow, okay, so.
So I'm rescinding my thought that we could do it a little bit at a time at meetings. So I've been giving this a lot of thought. Mathematically, we'd have to do about 10 a meeting. So here's what I'm thinking. You're all busy parents and coaches and employees. So I'm thinking of starting the meeting with a policy subcommittee meeting on the same night we have school committee meetings.
Okay.
If enough members of the school committee could come earlier, rather than having another night out.
And remind me, all of us, well, quorum at least have to, a subcommittee. Would that have to
Well,
be
you-
everybody or?
Yeah, that's a great question. Subcommittee would be 2, or the school committee could decide to simply have a school committee meeting for the purpose of policy revision at 6, I'm making this up, at 6:30 PM prior to a regular school committee meeting, and we would simply post 2 meetings. I'm of the opinion that not too many people are gonna wanna join you in a policy review and meeting. I don't think we don't have to, there's no rule that says we have to broadcast it. As long as it's open to the public.
I think for me, sometimes the meetings can run really long, and so to add another meeting on top of it seems very tiresome, especially when you're going over policies.
Yep.
So, you know, if I were to be part of it, I wouldn't want to extend the meeting on the same night.
I had 2 thoughts, and I agree with you, Michelle, the thought of extending the meeting. Oh my, wow. I'm a no. So, one thought is, it feels you've already done such a deep, detailed job, Tony, on this. Like, there's no world, like, is there some law that says that we can't just accept your recommendation of these policies without reading every single line of every single policy? Like, isn't that why we have a talented superintendent, to for you to make the recommendation and for us to believe you and potentially vote them, or maybe look at the different policies, and if there's any, we could review what kinds of policies, and if there's any that we felt particularly strongly we wanted to review in more detail together as a group, we could maybe say that. I don't know. I'm just wondering if there was a quicker way to go. And then my second, I see Gina's wants to get in here, is if that's a no and we're breaking a law by doing that, could we I'd rather have a day, and it's policy day or policy half day, and we advertise it, we all get together and we bring some muffins or something, and just do it all in one fell swoop and get it done and add an extra meeting. For me, that would be more palatable. Gina, sorry.
No, the only thought I had was, I mean, so far, there's some policies that we're gonna have to discuss in more detail. But most of the policies, like the amount of discussion that we have to do at the meeting, is not a lot, and the time spent is more reading at our own pace at home, at least so far as how we've gone. I can't fathom reading 180 policies and preparing for a single meeting. I also don't know how our group is going to feasibly, let's say if we divide it into 4 meetings, like between the superintendent search and our regular meetings and now these policy meetings, it just seems like too much. So, I mean, 10 policies a meeting is a lot. But if we're reading them and reviewing them at our own pace and then just discuss, I mean, I know we only did what, 3 or 4 at that we reviewed for a second reading at the last meeting. But as long as there's not a lot of discussion that's required, I don't know that it's going to take a ton of time. What do you think, Tony? I mean, I also don't know what these, what these proposed gazillion new policies are.
And I guess, to Gina's point, my other question, Tony, is these are policies recommended for review. Are these policies required to be reviewed?
Or if they're wording that's mandated by larger bodies than us, I don't know that we'd have a lot of wiggle room to edit it anyways. Some of these policies are mandated in a particular way.
I guess that was my point. If they're mandated and not, like you said, there are some policies we're going to want to review, agreed. But for anything else, I kind of just would rather have whatever the consent agenda version of approving a slate of policies that Tony has updated per the law, and we just have to approve them.
And we could review them before the meetings as we have been. I know 10 policies is not small amount, but we could each read 1 policy an evening. It's good nighttime material to put us to sleep. Nobody will need melatonin anymore.
Well, 10 policies to read, Madam Chair, through you. With all due respect, a policy day frightens me on what it may do to my mind.
Yeah.
I'm just spitballing here.
Although I
I didn't do it.
understand the efficiency of it, at the end of that day, I don't know if I would be able to find my way to my car.
Right. We might need some.
Secondly, I've spent a lot of time on this. On the 72 policies or 74 policies, I can go through them. I think what I may be doing wrong is I may be giving you the current policy and the new one, and I think what I can do is if I start over again, I can give you the new policy with an explanation of what changed. So you only have one thing to read.
But isn't that a lot of work for you? You've already gone through all of these in the
Well,
that you have.
not the last 90, I haven't, all I have
Okay.
done with the last 90 is I've copied them from the website. So that's all I had. So, but the first 74, I mean, basically, yes, I have done the work, I've made the copies. But it would only take, each policy would only take me a couple of minutes to go back to the website and see what's different. What I didn't do, which would be monstrous, is the website has a copy of each policy with the line changes. And I didn't even do that for you. You're not even seeing that because, that's color coded and, and most of them are so small changes that you would just say fine. You just, and the ones that are more detailed, that we want to give some time to, I can, as long as I say super organized, I can pull out one of those each meeting, like the discipline one. And I'll put with the discipline one, 9 automatics, you know, just the legal reference changed, or there's one, for example, I was telling the chair, the change is the word child is removed and the word student replaces the word child. Who's gonna argue with that? Right?
I think
So-
that's a good idea, Tony. I think that's a good idea. And we just hammer through a
We can
a
start.
handful.
And if it gets crazy, you know, if after a meeting or two, we all go, no, this is nuts. Now, what I have to tell you is the process of taking your approved change and getting it into the policy manual online takes as much time as changing the policy.
Can you do it all at once? Like, once we,
It would be a monstrous job. It would probably take a week to do it all at once. So I think doing it, like, I've done 2. And I wanted to do those 2 with Chris to figure out how much time it would take. So just so you understand, what we have to do is we have to take the policy. We have to make a file out of it in Word. Change all the words, change the reference, change the date, you know, first reading, second reading. Change the heading, because right now the heading of every policy says 2022, we have to change that. Then we have to take the Word document, change it to a PDF, because we can't post a Word document, or else somebody could change your policy.
Right.
Obviously, we can't do that. And then we have to change it to a PDF. It's all mechanical, but it takes time. Then we have to load it up on the website. Then the biggie is, every time we change a policy, if the title changes, the number of pages change, or we remove a policy, the index changes.
yes.
That we can do at the end,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
that's a big job in and of itself. So what my gut is, we change all the policies, we get them in the book, then we renumber them and change the index, do that last. Because to do it any other way, we're asking for multiple changes.
Yeah. I might have some ideas.
Great.
We can talk with you about.
Love it.
Has MAS given any guidance? I'm sure every school district is freaking out about 90 policies that they recommend for approval. In
Sure,
terms of like a guideline of, okay, we recommend, you know, that you review 90 policies and these are the changes.
that's exactly what their position is. And then there's a second piece to it. If you give us $20,000 to $30,000, we'll do it for you.
It might be worth it. Just kidding.
This year, because of certain decisions the school committee has made, I'm a little worried about that. And because we have some additional, as I had explained in the past, some additional special education costs. I think we're gonna be tight this year, but I mean, we can do it. But
Tony,
you're
I'm-
right.
I'm kidding.
$30,000 divided by 188, you know.
I'm
Well-
kidding. I'll suck it up.
So anyway, I will prepare 10 for next meeting, for the first reading. We will have 6 that we're doing today for the second reading next time, and we'll see how we do. Okay,
Okay, they might have to revisit this.
we may,
Yeah,
and
and then
we may have
I might be able to help in a more electronic way.
Okay,
I have a great one.
that would be wonderful. Okay,
Okay,
so Madam Chair, 7A for the second reading. This was the non-discrimination policy, including harassment and retaliation. And this was one that we had in the book.
I just want to make sure that I have it clear for the minutes that they're named the same thing. So they're both, there's AC and then AC-R, and they're both called non-discrimination, including harassment and retaliation, because okay,
That is correct.
okay.
And the second one, the AC-R, we don't have, and that's the one that I didn't fill in.
We were given them all in the last meeting though, because we went through, remember how we had the two.
I gave you the clean copy, except page 2 of 3. Just so you know, I apologize. AC-R, this page 2 of 3. The resources, the first person is Mary DeGuardia, and the second person is the principal. The principal is the 504 coordinator, and Mary DeGuardia is the district ADA, Title VI, Title IX, and sexual harassment. By the way, Title 4 or 6, excuse me, is racial discrimination. Title IX is gender discrimination. American with Disabilities Act is ADA, and obviously sexual harassment is sexual harassment. So I will put those in, and I apologize. They were there on one copy, which didn't make it for some reason.
So do we need a motion?
Yes, for each one. So the first one is AC, non-discrimination policy, including harassment and retaliation.
Okay, could I have a motion to approve policy A?
AC.
I'll make a motion to approve policy AC, non-discrimination, including harassment and retaliation.
I'll second the motion made by Ms. Lane.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, do I have a motion to accept policy AC-R?
I'll make a motion to accept policy AC-R, non-discrimination policy, including harassment and retaliation for approval.
I'll second the motion made by Ms. Tam.
All in favor?
Aye.
Can I have a motion to approve policy ACAB?
I'll make a motion to approve policy ACAB for concerning sexual harassment.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do I have a motion to approve policy ADF?
I'll make a motion to approve policy ADF, Nahant Public School Laws Policy.
Do I have a second?
I'll second the policy.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, moving on to new business.
Madam Chair, if I could give you, if you could give me 1 minute. I just want the members of the school committee to know that at the request of a member of the school committee, I added all the
I saw that.
legal references to 7D.
Thank you.
That was not there last time, just
Yes.
to highlight
I
that.
saw that.
No problem. And then the other thing I want to explain is why I handwrite on these. I don't want the staff to have to do this over and over again. So the only time I'm asking for help is when we're done.
I see, okay.
Hmm.
Because we have to go into it, like I explained, we have to go into a file, do a word, do it. And I don't want them to do it, if you think about it, it would be 3 times. First reading, second reading, and then the final. So that's why I do it by hand. In addition to the fact that I'm basically technologically illiterate, that's a different story.
Tony, you have 188 policies to go through, you can handwrite, it's totally fine.
Okay.
All right, so moving on to new business, MCAS.
Madam Chair, thank you. I'm happy to present this evening's MCAS results from the 2023 taking of the MCAS. You have item 8A in your packet. The first page, we had some discussion around how different factors are developed and how we get different various figures. As I stated in our last meeting, our criterion referenced target percentage is 62%. And it's a pretty complex formula that is written in italics down below, but it takes into account the history of our achievement, our growth in various areas, and our overall achievement, and it also is weighted. A 75% would be stating that we are completely meeting the state's expectations for getting to where they'd like us to be. And a 62% is represents substantial progress. And so I'm happy with that. I think that if you think of a report card, it's not the same thing as a report card. A 62% is not a D-. As I said at our staff meeting today, it means you're on the path, you're making good progress. But of course, all schools can improve. And we are retaining our 79 percentile accountability percentile, which is quite good. We're almost in the top 20% of schools in Massachusetts still. So those definitions there identify how they figure those numbers, if you'd like to reference those for yourselves. Would you like me to go into that further, or should I go on to the next page?
Can go on to
Move on, okay. On your next page, you'll see the stats. I wanted to give you all the numbers, the hard numbers that the state gives us. We get Native Americans pulled out, we get different subgroups pulled out. I took those out of the charts and just really focused on, for our sake, probably the simplest thing to do is look at all students and the changes. We are exceeding our targets in some areas and other areas for growth. ELA, we had an excellent year in. We exceeded the targets from the state in terms of improvement, and especially with respect to growth. That's the second chart you see below, ELA arts growth. We exceeded the growth that the state was looking for. We had a mean student growth percentile of 66%, which means that 50% is the average growth. 66% means that we grew more than the state by 16%. So our students improved more than the state's students improved on average. So we're improving more than average is what that means. Down below on the bottom chart, in the next page, we'll see some graphs which make this a little bit more visual. We continued to have good growth in math. However, our achievement in math went down by 3 percentage points. Oh, by 3, I'm sorry, not 3 percentage points, 3 points. And so the state sets a target for us. We had, if you recall, very high growth in math last year. This year, our growth in math was less. And so the state said, okay, you're not going to get points in that area because you didn't continue growing at the rate that we would like to see. It doesn't mean that we didn't perform well or above the state, which we did. But in that area, the states determined that we were not meeting their expectation for growth.
And that was relative to the prior year.
That's taking into consideration the prior year and also comparing it to the previous year, our history.
Okay.
So I'm curious in terms of, now that you have the data, what are you going to do with it in terms of, okay, there is an area in math
Yep,
where we've taken a dip,
yep,
how can we bring that?
Yeah, there's really a global answer. That we are going to focus on math and already have begun. The more targeted answer is, we have to look at the item analysis, figure out why. We are so small that you're looking at our 2023 achievement, a drop of 3.1 could be 1 or 2 students.
Yeah.
So we don't want to overreact. But so we have to look at what it means first. And the teachers were given this data today, so the principal will be working with them to give a much more deep dive into where did our progress not meet our expectations.
And can you remind me for math, what grades participate in that testing for MCAS?
sure thing, it's 3 to 6
All,
for our school.
okay, so all grades
Yes.
starting in 3.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
The next page, if I could just continue the presentation.
Yeah.
The next page is a little bit more, a little bit simpler to interpret, I find. This is what we get from our data dashboard company, Open Architects. They put this together for us. This is our ELA results. So 63% of our students are proficient. And you can see how the state did year to year. And then the second graph with that big jump up is our growth. This is how much we improved compared to the state. So 22 to 23, the state flatlined, where we really rocketed in terms of how much we improved. So this is ELA. And then down below, it's a little hard to see with the photocopy, but this tells you a breakdown of advanced, proficient, and these improvement historically.
That's great, and just one more like comment about the ELA is that, you know, I know everybody wants to focus on, you know, improving, but also, you know, focus on the improvements here, which is excellent. And some of the concepts from reading, you know, to carry over into math.
Right, how yeah, a lot of math now is understanding a word
Yeah.
problem, explaining your reasoning. And so we're gonna be looking at that in some professional development sessions coming up in fact. And I'll talk about those in a second. The next page is our math results. So you'll see here, we still had, you know, our average student growth percentile was 52%. So we improved more than the state on average. We had 54% of our students proficient. It was only a change of 3% from the previous year. That's interesting that the percentage change is the same as the raw score change. But anyway, you have the two similar graphs, which, you know, we did fantastic last year in our growth. This year we continued to grow, but not quite as high. And so to your question, we're looking at, you know, how can we integrate manipulatives more in math? How can we break down word problems? And then what are the programs that we're using and how do they support students? So we certainly started that conversation today. This tool that the district funds, which is the Open Architects dashboard, allows teachers to get in there, look at their students, see the strands that they were strong in and see the strands that they could be, have areas for improvement. And so that's part of what we'll be doing to improve our MCAS scores going forward, always looking to see how high we can reach. And I'm also hoping that IXL, with its narrow focus on certain skills, can target those areas.
Yeah, I when I look at these, several things go through my mind. Number one, we're so small. I look at the graphs and I see that in 18 and 19, we were a little bit above the state, and then we popped. And then everybody dipped. But if you look at where we end up, we're still, particularly in SGP, even in math, even with the drop in SGP, which again could be 1 or 2 students, we're still significantly, we're growing better. Our students are improving better than in this state, which is where we want. Then I look at the bar graphs at the bottom, and if you notice how little difference there is between the math and ELA, and how it looks and feels so much different.
Yeah.
So if you look at the math, we actually have more math students succeeding by percentage than we have ELA students. We have 13%. The current year, we have 13% exceeding the standards in math, and in ELA only 10%. Again, that's probably just 1 student difference. And then you look at the next bar, which is really the difference. In math, we had 42% meeting, whereas in ELA, we had 53. So that's really, again, probably, what, 2 students?
Right,
So-
we're only testing about 60 students a year.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, when there's such a small pool.
we're such a small pool, and when you
Negative
look at those
numbers
bar
are-
graphs, you go,
yeah.
whoa, that,
And
you know, if
positive
you move
numbers.
one or 2 kids, you know, one level up, it makes a huge difference. Not that we don't want to keep, you know, what we had going,
Right.
we want that, but if you notice, everybody's dipped in 2021, and there's a couple of reasons. By the way, the flat line between, if you notice, 2020 is missing. We didn't do MCAS.
Right.
So 2021 was the first time in 2 years we did any test, and in our grade levels, in 2021, I don't think they were all. Didn't they pick?
Oh, yeah,
They picked,
what they did is we had fewer sections.
right.
Yeah, they really cut down.
Fewer grades took MCAS
Yeah.
in 21.
Yeah.
And 22 was the first time we were back to full.
Mhm.
So again, recognizing our need for continuous improvement, we don't wanna, you know. Say, oh my God, you know, what's happening?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because good things, you know, our students are doing well. And we'll keep looking at it, the staff will really start diving down, and Mr. Andrews will make sure that our professional development is targeted. Okay?
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And then the next item, again, I'm gonna turn it over to Mr. Andrews, this is exciting.
This is a grant that the garden club came to me with wanting to write, and it's been really nice to see. Just community members that don't have children here that want us to succeed or continue to succeed. And they had an idea for what they call story walk style frames. And these are frames that we could put on the school grounds that would interpret what the children are seeing. And they're changeable. And so we're looking to get 3 signs on the school grounds, probably behind the school as you walk down the heritage trail. To identify the gardens that are in the forest playground, gardens that you see as you come around. But also history. I want to work with the Historic Society to identify, this used to be a World War II fort. And where those things used to be, so have different themes for these storyboards. Students can use them for education, and also organizations can use them to kind of highlight their own mission in terms of Historic Society, Garden Club, what's blooming right now, what animals might you see, what are signs of nature. And so there, I met with some members of the Garden Club, including Peg Curran, and talked about the grant proposal. It's around $1,200, around $300 per sign. And again, it would be changeable. We would start out with one set of 3 signs, and then work with groups, work with students. Students could make, I could picture a class making a sign that had QR codes, we could go up and scan it, it might bring you to a document a kid made online that would show you what's flowering or what that photograph of the tree means. For them, art projects, yeah,
Contests,
yeah.
lots of stuff. to get
Yeah.
done.
Or even a story walk like they have at the library.
Yeah.
But they're called story walk signs, but they're not necessarily thinking about having Cinderella in the garden. We're thinking about using it as interpretive signs.
Mhm.
So that's an exciting grant proposal that I'm working on with the garden club.
So before we jump into all the other policies, do you wanna address item 8I? I think you did earlier.
Yeah, I think that was addressed in the superintendent's report.
Yeah, I knew by this time we would be exhausted, so I hopped that up to my presentation.
Thank you.
You're-
Excellent. All right, let's go back to new policies.
Okay, so let's take DA, which was one of my favorite haircuts.
I'm not even gonna ask.
So the old policy is first, which is what I do when you're first reading. The language is different. There's nothing in my reading of the new version that is substantively different, other than it leads to more collaboration. You know, advanced planning, the allocation of public funding, advocating for levels of funding that will provide high quality education, it's all the things we already do. The old one was more about establishing and providing, you know, like deadlines. So this one, I don't think it changes. There's nothing in the new policy that would require us to change anything that we do in our budget development, in my opinion. DB, which is the annual budget, this one goes the other way. The current one is 4 paragraphs and the new one is like 9. But again, it is very consistent with what we do. Orderly and cooperative effort. Public school budgeting is regulated and controlled by, there's nothing, the superintendent will serve as a budget officer. You know, there's nothing in here that we don't do that I know. The big change is it tells us that the annual budget for each school operated by the district shall be developed with input from the school council, which of course we already do. We get the school improvement plan and we look at it. Which some districts, my guess is they weren't doing that historically. And then another big difference in the new version is it specifically tells us what the budget is. The next to last paragraph. The budget is a spending plan. That's really new. I have no idea what we thought it was before that.
You know, as a finance person, I'm like.
Yeah,
what else would it
yeah.
be? You know, it's.
But obviously it wasn't in policy, even though that's the only thing it could have been. DBC or budget deadlines and schedules, and these are less specific again. This also notes that the selectmen can do things. And by the way, there are notes on these that I will take off because they refer to cities and regional school districts. And we don't want those on ours.
I just was more curious about the imposition of a date from the selectmen, and obviously if they were to do that, that would be through communication through you.
Or directly through the town administrator to you,
Okay.
or directly from the town administrator to me. And that's not gonna happen. Our finance committees don't even meet till February.
Yeah.
If you remember, we
Yeah,
kept
I do.
delaying
Yeah.
because of them, so nothing's gonna happen before December 31st. That must be a provision on some law. That's the only reason I can imagine it's there.
Budget planning.
Okay. DBD. Wait a minute. I get so confused. The current one is what it is, the budget planning, new one. The bullets are basically the same. There's a little more depth. And this one, there's a piece related to that previous one about school councils. Basically saying you can't develop the budget before school councils have a chance of to give you their input. And some of the verbiage is different, but I didn't see anything really significantly different. Sometimes they rewrite them simply because they don't like the grammar. You know, they don't like the way it sounds.
Budget transfers.
DBG.
Awesome.
Cost centers.
Got it.
Okay.
BBJ.
Very little again. This one,
Budget transfers.
DBG for budget adoption procedures, the big change is. I was under the impression that the local community could determine the type of vote to pass a budget. 2/3 unanimous. The new one says the budget is adopted by simple majority. So once again, I think that may be in a law. But we always did that. And then budget transfer authority, right now, this is exactly what we do.
First,
Tony, were you saying that you're taking these and retyping them so that they're in Word?
No,
No.
Okay.
what I did was I went to the MASC website. And I was able to download in Word form the new policy.
Oh, okay. I thought you were retyping them. It just
But
sounds.
the new policy doesn't add first reading, second reading, date of approval. I mean, that has to. And then, of course, the page number isn't on there.
Yeah.
And then the heading isn't on there. Our policy. I know for some reason when I downloaded all the current policies, all I got was the text. I didn't get the heading and footing. But obviously, when we build our next book, it'll be with a heading and footing, which, for example, we put on today's new policies that are now in the book. So that all has to be done. In addition to putting all the changes. But the actual verbiage of the change, I was able to download from the MASC site. With the exception of the ones that have specific things that either the school committee wants different or that is unique, for example, Nahant or Mary DeGuardia. Obviously, that has to be put in.
Which is basically what you're handling.
Yeah. Okay, so Madam Chair, with all due respect, we need a bunch of motions.
Okay, can I have a motion in
Wait.
regards to policy?
Isn't this the first reading?
Yes,
I'm so confused.
we just have to document the first reading of these policies.
We don't make a motion, right?
it's not required, but I recommend that
Oh,
something somewhere in the, it simply says.
That we had first.
That we had a
reading.
first reading of policies, DA, DB, DBC, DBD, DBG, DBJ.
I didn't make a note of that in the last meeting minutes. That's why I'm asking.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Can I have a motion regarding all of these policies?
What's the motion?
I didn't think we needed a
We don't-
motion, just a document that
Just
we
document.
had the.
Just documented, we had in the minutes that first.
Got it.
Done.
That's fine. I don't want somebody to come back, yeah, you had a second reading, but where's the first reading?
No, it's all documented under new business.
That's all we need to do.
Okay, thank you. for that clarification. Do we have any other committee business that we'd like to discuss?
I do not.
No, I do not.
Nope.
Any announcements?
None, I mean,
None?
No.
Okay, I have a motion to adjourn this.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting at 9:16.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Favor?
I
Night, everybody. Good
thank
night.
you. Sorry that I couldn't be in person. I'm sorry.
Same.
Oh, no. Thank you for participating.
Bye, team.
Bye, everybody.
I am really good at electronic.